The first thing Commander Rhea Corvan noticed when the transport broke through the upper layers of Arkeon's atmosphere was how blue the horizon was. Not the blue of oceans or skies, this was deeper, metallic, a shimmer that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. The shuttle's hull trembled under the strain of entry, and for a few moments, the whole cabin became a cocoon of heat and sound. She gripped the edge of her seat and watched the thin ribbons of plasma stream across the viewport. Below, the planet's crust glowed with faintly luminescent ridges winding across deserts of glass. That glow wasn't natural. The last bombardment had fused half a continent. What the old colonists had called the mirror lands were now one continuous scar, smooth enough to reflect the light of Arkeon's twin suns. Rhea's second, Lieutenant Havel Istra, leaned forward from the opposite seat. Sensors reading stable, no more atmospheric distortion. The radiation belts are still heavy, but the filters can handle it. Rhea nodded. Let's hope they can handle the surface storms too. Open comms with base. Havel hesitated. If there is a base left. Rhea didn't answer. The signal link hissed and cracked, then finally stabilized into a dull, rhythmic pulse. There was life below, mechanical, not biological, but that was enough. The remnant colony beacons still pulsed on the surface after all these years. The crew of 12 moved with silent efficiency as the shuttle descended. Their mission wasn't exploration, it was reclamation. Arkeon had once been humanity's proudest frontier, a place where their kind had stood shoulder to shoulder against the native Zhorai species in uneasy alliance. Then came the collapse. The Zhorai fleets turned, and the skies burned. That had been 40 years ago. The shuttle touched down on a plateau of fractured obsidian, and dust rose around the landing struts in shimmering clouds. When the airlock opened, it was like stepping into the breath of an oven. Rhea adjusted the seals on her suit, feeling the weight of the environment pressing down. Gravity here was only slightly higher than Earth's, but the temperature and residual radiation made every movement feel like wading through syrup. The landscape stretched in all directions, fields of rippling glass dunes and metallic bones where cities had once stood. The ruins looked as though they had melted, then cooled mid-collapse, their towers now hollowed spires. Havel walked beside her, visor tinted against the glare. Imagine thinking we could live here again. Imagine giving up on it, Rhea replied. They moved in formation toward the signal. The rest of the squad fanned out, scanning with portable sensors. Static filled their comms. Arkeon had never been friendly to electronics. Its crust was laced with minerals that interfered with transmissions. A small outcrop loomed ahead, a jagged rise of blackened stone surrounding a crater. Within that crater, something metallic gleamed. Rhea felt a flicker of recognition. The colony's central relay tower. It was still standing, half-sunken but intact. They descended into the crater. The tower's surface bore impact marks, and vines of crystalline growth had begun to climb its sides, shimmering faintly. Havel knelt by the base and brushed away debris. The generator core is intact, the beacon S still running off its reserve cell. Rhea crouched beside him. Can you patch into the logs? Trying. He connected a cable from his wrist interface. Signal architectures pre-collapse. These things weren't built for compatibility. Neither were we, Rhea murmured. Static surged through the commline, then gave way to a voice, old, crackled human, to whoever finds this message. We held the line for as long as we could. The Zhorai breached the upper defenses. The command dome fell. If any human ships return, don't search the cities. Go to the vault beneath the ecliptic basin. The archive survives there. Then, silence. Rhea exhaled slowly. The ecliptic basin. That was nearly 200 kilometers south, across the mirror lands. Havel looked up. The archive, you think it's real? If the old colonists said it was, I believe them. He frowned. Even after everything they lost, especially after. She stood, surveying the distant horizon. In the heat haze, the air wavered, making the land appear fluid. Far away, something shimmered and shifted like motion in the mirage. Movement, one of the soldiers reported, bearing northeast. Rhea turned sharply. The squad raised their weapons. Out of the glare came shapes, tall, thin figures, their limbs jointed at odd angles. Their skin was translucent, their movements deliberate. The Zhorai, Rhea's breath caught. She hadn't seen one alive since her cadet years. "Hold formation," she ordered. The figures approached slowly, not hostile but not afraid. There were 5 of them, and the one in front carried a staff of silver metal threaded with light. When it spoke, its voice reverberated through the translator embedded in Rhea's helmet. "You return to the wound you made." Rhea stepped forward. "We return to reclaim what we lost." The Zhorai tilted its head. "You cannot reclaim what was never truly yours." Havel whispered through the comlink, "Commander, we're not equipped for diplomacy." Rhea raised a hand for silence. "We didn't come here to fight. We're looking for the archive, the human archive beneath the ecliptic basin." A pause. The alien's eyes, slitted, multifaceted, reflected the glare of the suns. "The basin is forbidden. It sleeps under the guardians. You walk toward your unmaking." "Then we'll take our chances," Rhea said. The Zhorai's luminous fingers tightened on its staff. "So it is as before, you will not learn." Before Rhea could reply, the ground beneath them trembled. The crystalline vines surrounding the relay tower pulsed, then shattered. Energy rippled outward in concentric circles, distorting the air. The Zhorai retreated in unison, vanishing into the shimmer like ghosts. The tremor faded, leaving only the wind and the echo of that strange energy pulse. Havel swore softly. "What was that?" "Warning," Rhea said. "Or invitation." They returned to the shuttle at dusk. The suns dipped below the horizon, and the landscape came alive with faint bioluminescence. The glass dunes glowed from within, veins of light running like molten rivers beneath the surface. Inside the shuttle, Rhea removed her helmet and stared out the viewport. The image of the Zhorai lingered in her mind. They weren't supposed to be here. The planetary scans before descent had shown no life. Havel joined her. "You think they've been living here the whole time? Maybe they never left. Then why warn us away from the basin?" Rhea folded her arms. "Because whatever's down there, it scares even them." Night fell fully, and the twin moons rose, one pale white, one copper red. Their reflections rippled across the mirror lands. The surface winds picked up, and tiny shards of glass hissed against the hull. In the crew quarters, the soldiers murmured among themselves. Talk of old wars, of the way the Zhorai had turned from allies to enemies overnight. The collapse of the frontier, the loss of whole fleets. Some said humanity had deserved it, that they'd pushed too far, too fast. Others said they'd been betrayed. Rhea listened but said nothing. She remembered the evacuation of Edda Prime, the burning skies, the screams through the comms as orbital defense stations fell one by one. The Zhorai had once fought beside them against the Nethar incursions. Then, without warning, they had turned their weapons inward. She had been 17 then. She still remembered the way her mother's hands had trembled when the sirens sounded. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Commander," Havel called from the forward console, "you'll want to see this." Rhea joined him. The shuttle's passive sensors had picked up a faint transmission, subsurface, somewhere to the south. Origin, approximate coordinates align with the ecliptic basin. Rhea stared at the readout. "How strong is it?" "Faint, but repeating in intervals, almost rhythmic. Could be automatic defense systems or distress." "Or bait," Havel added. Rhea smiled thinly. "Either way we go in the morning." The crew slept fitfully as the wind howled outside. When dawn came, the light refracted across the horizon like a shattered prism. The shuttle lifted off, skimming low over the terrain. Below them, the glass plains stretched endlessly, cracked by dark veins of molten rock that pulsed faintly as though alive. Hours passed in uneasy silence until the land began to change. The plains dipped into a vast depression, an immense bowl surrounded by jagged cliffs. The ecliptic basin. From above, it looked like the crater of a fallen world. The glass here was darker, fractured into patterns resembling veins of obsidian. In the center, a massive structure jutted from the ground, part tower, part spire, built from fused metal and crystalline bone. "Looks like a city," Havel said. "Or a tomb," Rhea replied. "Take us down." They landed near the base of the spire. The air was thicker here, heavy with ozone. The hum of energy filled the silence. As the team approached, the structure's surface began to shimmer. Symbols appeared, patterns of light running in concentric spirals. They recognized none of them. Rhea placed her hand against the surface. It felt warm, almost pulsing. Suddenly, a voice filled her mind, not through her ears, but inside her consciousness. You return to the wound you left. You come seeking memory. You will find consequence. Rhea staggered back, clutching her head. The others stared at her. What happened? Havel asked. It spoke, she whispered, not through sound, through thought. Before anyone could react, the spire cracked open. Panels of fused glass slid aside, revealing a narrow passage descending into darkness. Rhea drew her sidearm. Looks like it wants us inside. Havel hesitated. You sure this is wise? Probably not, she said. But wisdom never built anything worth keeping. They entered the spire. Inside, the walls pulsed with faint blue light. The deeper they went, the more the air thickened, until it felt like walking through invisible pressure. Strange carvings lined the corridor, depictions of both human and Zhorai forms intertwined, then divided by flame. The path ended in a chamber that opened into a vast dome. At its center hovered a sphere of light, suspended above a pedestal. Around it were dozens of human skeletons, preserved by the dry air. Their armor bore the insignia of the first colonists. Rhea approached slowly. The archive, she whispered. Havel stared at the remains. They died protecting it. Rhea extended her hand toward the sphere. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, the light flared, and images filled the air, cities, ships, battles, the first landing on Arkeon, then chaos. The skies burning, the betrayal, the fall. The sphere's voice filled the chamber. We preserved the truth. The Zhorai did not begin the war. Humanity did. The light dimmed, leaving only silence. Rhea stood frozen. That's impossible. Havel looked at her pale. If that's true, then everything we were taught was a lie, she finished. Above them, the spire groaned. Energy surged through the floor. The walls began to shift. We need to leave. Now. They ran toward the entrance, the corridor collapsing behind them. As they burst into the open air, the ground split apart. From within the basin, massive constructs began to rise, machines of glass and metal shaped like towering figures. Guardians. Rhea turned to the shuttle. Lift off, get us clear. The engines roared to life, and the craft shot upward just as one of the constructs struck the ground where they had stood. The shockwave hurled shards of glass into the sky. From above, Rhea watched the basin transform. The spire sank back into the earth, sealing itself, while the Guardians stood sentinel around it. The truth still echoed in her mind. Humanity had fired the first shot. As the shuttle rose into the stratosphere, Rhea looked back at the glowing basin. We came here for the past, she said quietly. Now it's coming for us. The shuttle's ascent through Arkeon's turbulent upper atmosphere was anything but smooth. Every few seconds, the craft bucked as gusts of thermionic wind struck its hull. Static crawled across the control panels, making the sensors stutter. Commander Rhea Corvan gripped the armrests as Havel fought the controls. Stabilizers are overheating, he said through clenched teeth. The radiation layer's denser than expected. Push us through, she ordered. We need orbit before the Guardians launch anything else at us. Below them, the ecliptic basin was a storm of rising energy. Great arcs of light danced between the Guardian constructs, striking the ground in rhythmic pulses as if the planet itself were breathing. As they broke through the upper haze, the light of the twin suns spilled across the cockpit. The stars beyond looked sharper here, harsh, crystalline points against a sea of violet black. Rhea exhaled slowly, her knuckles white. Report damage. Minor hull fractures, one stabilizer offline, and atmospheric filters down to 70%, Havel replied. But we're alive. The rest of the crew cheered weakly in the rear cabin. They were too exhausted to sound relieved. Rhea turned in her chair. Status of the archive data, Engineer Sarah Valen, a quiet woman with copper-colored hair tied back in a severe braid, checked her display. We managed to copy fragments from the sphere before it expelled us. Incomplete, but enough to suggest there's more beneath the surface than we saw. Good. Encrypt everything. I don't want the fleet intercepting it before we know what it says. Sierra hesitated. Commander, you think the fleet command will bury this? Rhea met her gaze. If the archive's right, if humanity started the war, they'll do worse than bury it. They'll burn every trace. Silence settled in the cabin. For centuries, the official story had been clear. The Zhorai betrayed humanity without provocation. They'd annihilated colonies, shattered alliances, and driven human fleets back to the sole frontier. It had become a foundational myth, the great betrayal that united humankind under one banner. But what if it wasn't betrayal at all? Rhea rubbed the bridge of her nose, feeling the ache of fatigue creeping in. Set a course for orbit. We'll re-establish contact with the carrier once we're in clear range. The shuttle climbed higher, the planet shrinking below until the mirror lands were just a streak of color across its curve. Hours later, they docked with the cruiser Vigilant Horizon, humanity's last functioning deep space flagship in this sector. It hung in orbit like a dagger, sleek, angular, its hull marked by 1,000 scars from the old war. As the airlock sealed behind them, Rhea felt the familiar hum of artificial gravity settle in. The sterile scent of recycled air and machine oil replaced the acrid tang of Arkeon's atmosphere. Lieutenant Havel fell into step beside her as they walked the main corridor. "The Admiral won't like this," he said quietly. "Admiral Taran rarely likes anything," Rhea replied. "He doesn't have to." They reached the command deck. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the tall figure of Admiral Taran Voss standing before the panoramic viewport. His hair was iron gray, his uniform immaculate. He turned slowly as they entered. "Commander Corvan," he said, voice low and even, "you're overdue." Rhea stood at attention. "Surface conditions were unstable, sir." "We located the colony relay and traced the signal to the ecliptic basin. Any survivors?" "None, sir, only remains." Taran studied her. "And the Zhorai?" "Alive," she said. "At least a few. They warned us away from the basin." His eyes narrowed. "You made contact?" "Yes, sir, briefly." He clasped his hands behind his back. "You were ordered to retrieve the archive, not negotiate." "With respect, Admiral, we didn't have a choice. The basin was guarded." "Guarded? By constructs," Havel added. "Massive ones. They appeared after we accessed the archive." Taran turned toward the viewport again. "And the archive itself?" "We retrieved fragments," Rhea said carefully. "They contain unexpected data, historical inconsistencies." "Inconsistencies." His tone made the word sound poisonous. "Explain." Rhea hesitated. "According to the records we recovered, the first strike on Arkeon was launched by human forces." For a moment, silence filled the command deck. Then Taran turned, eyes cold. "You are certain?" "Yes, sir." He stared at her for a long time, then exhaled through his nose. "You will deliver the data core to intelligence immediately." "This matter is classified beyond fleet clearance." "Understood," Rhea stiffened. "With respect, Admiral, I believe the crew should be debriefed together. They all witnessed." "That's an order, Commander," Taran said, voice rising slightly. "The fewer who know, the better." Rhea bit back her reply. "Understood." Taran nodded curtly. "You and your team will remain on standby. The Council will determine our next action." As they turned to leave, Havel muttered under his breath, "They'll bury it." Rhea didn't answer. She already knew. Back in the crew quarters, the mood was grim. The soldiers who'd survived the surface descent moved quietly, exchanging wary glances. Sierra approached Rhea with a data slate held close. "I made a duplicate," she whispered. Rhea blinked. "Of the archive," Sierra nodded. "Encrypted, triple-layered, hidden in the shuttle's diagnostic logs. They'll never find it unless they know where to look." Rhea felt a surge of respect. That was risky. Truth usually is. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Rhea sat by the viewport in her quarters, watching Arkeon's faint glow beneath the stars. She could still hear the echo of the archive's voice. Humanity began the war. The thought gnawed at her. All her life, she'd been raised to believe humanity were the wronged ones, the survivors of alien treachery. But if they were the aggressors, what did that make them now? A chime broke her thoughts. A coded message flashed across her console. It was unsigned, untraceable, but she recognized the encryption. Havels, meet in Observation Bay 3, urgent. Rhea slipped into her jacket and left quietly. The observation bay was dimly lit, its wide windows showing the planet below. Havel and Sira were already there. "You got my message?" Havel said. "What's this about?" He gestured toward the console. Long-range scans picked up movement Zhorai ships coming out of the dark side of Arkeon, small fleet but organized. Rhea frowned. Could they have detected us? Possibly. But here's the thing, they're not approaching the cruiser. They're orbiting the basin, like they're guarding it. Sira leaned forward. Maybe they're protecting the archive. Rhea considered that. Or making sure we don't take it. A voice spoke from the doorway. Both are true. They turned sharply. A figure stood silhouetted against the corridor light, thin, elongated, draped in metallic fabric. A Zhorai. Before anyone could react, it raised a hand. "Do not call your guards, I came alone." Rhea's pulse spiked. "How did you get aboard this ship? Your defenses are strong, but not impenetrable," it said calmly. "I came through the old channels, the frequencies you once shared with us." Havel took a step forward. "What do you want? To prevent another war?" The alien stepped into the light. Its skin shimmered like liquid quartz, and its eyes burned faintly blue. "You have seen the truth buried on Arkeon. Now you must decide what to do with it." Rhea kept her weapon lowered but ready. "Who are you?" "I was once called Aurelin by your kind," it said. "I served as envoy when our peoples were allies." Rhea blinked. "The Aurelin Accords, those were 2 centuries ago." "Yes," Aurelin said softly. "And I remember when your fleets arrived with promises of peace. I remember when they broke them." Sira stepped closer, voice trembling. "Why come here now?" "Because your leaders will destroy what you found," Aurelin said. "And in doing so, they will awaken what sleeps beneath the basin. The Guardians were not built by us alone. They were made to restrain something greater." "What?" Rhea asked. "The memory of creation," Aurelin said. "A weapon built from knowledge. You call it the archive, but it is more than record. It is consciousness. It remembers every act of violence between our species, and it judges." Rhea's throat went dry. "It judges?" "Yes, it was meant to ensure neither species could rise to dominance, but when you attacked first, it turned against you. That was the true cause of your collapse." Havel looked from Rhea to Aurelin. "Then why warn us?" "Because it awakens again," Aurelin said, its voice a low resonance. "Your presence on Arkeon stirred it. If it completes its awakening, it will not distinguish between human or Zhorai. It will see only those who have spilled blood." Rhea's pulse quickened. "How do we stop it?" "You cannot stop what remembers," Aurelin said, "but you can choose what it learns next. Tell your people the truth. End the cycle of lies before the archive finishes its judgment." A klaxon blared suddenly, echoing through the ship. Red lights flared across the bay. Havel turned toward the nearest console. "Security breach. Someone detected the intruder." Aurelin's eyes flashed. "I will not survive your Admiral's mercy." "Wait," Rhea called. "We can hide you," but before she could finish, Aurelin dissolved into a cascade of light, dispersing into the air like mist. Rhea stood frozen, heart pounding. "Did that just vapor transmission?" Sira said faintly. "I've read about it. The Zhorai use it for short-distance retreat, but it takes immense energy." The alarm continued to wail. Rhea turned to Havel. "Lock down all mention of this. If Taran finds out, we'll never learn the truth." By morning, the ship's mood was different. The Admiral's staff moved with tense precision. Word spread that the Zhorai fleet had moved closer, hovering in low orbit over the basin. Rhea and her crew were ordered to remain confined to quarters, pending debrief. Havel paced the floor. "They're hiding something." Taran's been on comms with the Council for hours. Sira's console chimed softly. Incoming transmission, encrypted with the same signature as Aurelin's. Rhea leaned over her shoulder. The message unfolded into words that glowed faintly across the screen. "If they destroy the basin, they destroy us all." Before they could respond, the intercom crackled. "Commander Corvan, report to the Admiral's office immediately." Rhea straightened. Looks like we're about to find out what they're planning. Admiral Taran was waiting when she entered. His expression was unreadable. Commander, he said, the Council has reviewed your report. The decision is clear. Rhea felt dread coil in her stomach. And that decision is, the basin will be neutralized. A precision bombardment will ensure the archive cannot fall into enemy hands. Rhea took a step forward. That's insanity. The energy readings alone, if you strike it, you could trigger. That is not your concern, Taran interrupted. Your orders are to prepare targeting data. She stared at him, incredulous. Sir, with respect, this isn't strategy, it's extermination. Taran's voice hardened. You will follow your orders, Commander, or I will relieve you of duty and charge you with insubordination. Rhea's hands clenched at her sides. If you do this, you'll end the human race. He met her gaze coldly. Then we will die as victors, not relics. There was nothing more to say. Rhea turned on her heel and left. Her mind raced. The fleet was going to strike the basin, and with it, the archive, the Guardians, and perhaps the planet itself. She reached her quarters, locked the door, and activated the private comms link to Havel and Sierra. We have to stop the bombardment. Havel's face appeared on the screen. How? The firing codes are locked to the Admiral's console. Sierra's voice was grim, unless we can override them. The Horizon's AI still uses the old core structure from the first generation. If I can access it through the maintenance relays, I might delay the sequence. How long? Rhea asked. Minutes, maybe, enough to get the truth out. Rhea nodded. Do it. The countdown to bombardment began within the hour. The fleet's weapons arrays extended, glimmering against the void. Below them, the planet turned slowly, the basin shining faintly with its twin moons. Rhea and her team moved through the maintenance decks under the pretext of system inspection. When they reached the AI control chamber, Sierra knelt by the terminal, hands flying over the interface. Security layers are thick, she muttered. They've added a failsafe. If I tamper too much, it'll trigger full lockdown. Then go carefully, Rhea said. The ship trembled slightly as targeting systems aligned. Rhea looked toward the viewport, heart pounding. We are running out of time. Sierra entered the final sequence. Got it. We've intercepted the firing command. It's looping now. They won't notice for another few minutes. Transmit the data, Rhea ordered. Havel nodded, sending the encrypted archive copy through the long-range beacon, broadcasting it across every open channel. Message away, he said. Moments later, the ship's alarms began to wail again. The control systems flickered, and the intercom blared Taran's voice. Corvan, you've committed treason. Stand down immediately. Rhea drew her weapon. We've gone too far to stop now. Outside the viewport, the Zhorai fleet began to move. Their ships formed a protective ring over the basin, energy fields glowing. They were defending the archive. Taran's voice came again, furious. You think they'll spare you? They'll destroy us all, Rhea keyed the intercom. If we're already doomed, I'd rather die telling the truth. The ship shuddered violently. The Guardians below had awakened fully. Beams of light lanced upward from the planet, striking the orbiting vessels. One of the human cruisers disintegrated in a silent bloom of fire. Impact from surface, Havel shouted. Sierra grabbed the console. The archive's reacting, it's absorbing the energy. Rhea turned toward the viewport. From space, the ecliptic basin now blazed like a second sun. The archive was awake, and it was looking back. For a moment, the entire fleet hung in orbit as though suspended between heartbeats. The light from Arkeon's surface expanded outward in a slow, terrible pulse that bled across the void. Inside the vigilant horizon, alarms screamed. Power surges cascaded through every deck. The artificial gravity faltered for a heartbeat, sending crew and equipment drifting. Rhea Corvan fought to steady herself against the control console. Through the viewport, she watched the light swell, rippling across the planet's curve until the atmosphere shimmered like a molten mirror. The archive's field is spreading, Havel shouted. It's generating some kind of gravitational resonance. I can't even get a solid reading, Sierra cut him off, eyes wide. It's not gravity, it's information. Return to her. What? The archive's not just emitting energy, it's transmitting data. massive amounts. It's rewriting the planet's electromagnetic signature. It's alive. A deep vibration rolled through the hull. Across the fleet, ships shifted formation in confusion. Admiral Tarran's voice roared over the comms. All vessels maintain distance from the planetary field. Prepare emergency jump coordinates. Do not, repeat, do not engage the surface. But the warning came too late. One of the smaller cruisers, Solace's End, had drifted too close. Its forward shields flared, then collapsed. The ship dissolved into motes of light, disintegrating as if unmade from within. Rhea stared horrified. It's consuming them. Havel swallowed hard. It's judging them, Commander, just like the envoy said. Rhea turned away from the viewport. Get us out of orbit. Full burn. The Admiral will do it. Havel hit the thrusters. The horizon lurched, engines roaring as it climbed away from the spreading light. In the lower decks, crew members scrambled to reinforce the failing systems. Panels sparked. Voices shouted through the corridors. Rhea opened a comm link to engineering. Status, reactors unstable, came the reply, broken by static. Power fluctuations are wait, what is that? The transmission cut out in a burst of noise. Sierra paled. We just lost the secondary reactor. Rhea's mind raced. Shut down all non-essential systems. Focus everything on containment and navigation. She turned back to the viewport. The light from the basin was no longer confined to the surface. It was spreading upward, forming lattices of energy that arced into orbit like branches of a tree. Each filament connected to another, weaving a web of light that stretched between the human fleet and the Zhorai ships. And then, through the static of the comm system, a voice emerged. Not a human one and not mechanical either. It was the same presence Rhea had felt beneath the spire. You opened the wound again. Rhea froze. The archive, she whispered. The voice echoed across every channel. You come with weapons. You come with fear. You come with memory that has forgotten itself. Admiral Tarran's voice barked through the overlapping static. This is Admiral Voss of the human fleet. Identify yourself. I am the sum of your violence, the voice replied. The mirror you built to remember and then sought to break. Rhea felt her chest tighten. It's speaking to all of us. On the viewport, the web of light pulsed. Across the Zhorai fleet, ships dimmed their engines and drifted into stillness, as though listening. Tarran's voice returned, angrier now. If you threaten this fleet, we will destroy you. You already have, the voice said, again and again and again. And then the light struck. It wasn't a beam so much as a wave, a flood of brilliance that washed through every ship in orbit. The horizon trembled, its lights flickering as the main reactor screamed under the strain. Rhea fell to one knee, clutching her head as images filled her mind. Not her memories, others. Worlds burning, oceans turning to glass, the faces of soldiers human and Zhorai dying side by side. The same history repeated across centuries. She saw the first landing on Arkeon, the moment human colonists had breached the ancient vault that contained the archive, their fear, their hunger for knowledge, their weapons, and she saw the archive awaken, confused and enraged, built to preserve peace but finding only blood. Rhea gasped as the visions faded. The lights flickered back to life. Around her, the crew looked shaken, pale. Havel's voice was hoarse. Did you see it too? Rhea nodded. It's showing us everything. The real war, the first one. Sierra was trembling. The archive isn't trying to destroy us. It's trying to make us remember. Admiral Tarran's voice broke through the comms, raw with fury. All ships, prepare for counterstrike. Fire everything you have. Rhea's eyes widened. No, he'll just feed it more destruction. Outside, the fleet's guns opened fire. Beams of plasma lanced toward the planet, striking the glowing surface. The light absorbed every shot without resistance. The more they fired, the brighter it became. You learn nothing, the archive's voice said. The next pulse was stronger. The horizon's hull groaned as if caught in an invisible tide. Screens shattered. The artificial gravity buckled again. Havel slammed his hand against the console. We can't hold this. The field's tearing the ship apart. Returned to Sierra. Can we shut down power entirely? Not without losing life support. Then reroute minimal output to shields and keep the engines cold. We need to look dead. Sierra hesitated, then nodded. Understood. The horizon's lights dimmed until only emergency indicators remained. The ship drifted, silent, among the chaos. Through the viewport, Rhea saw other vessels, human and Zhorai alike, caught in the radiance. Some disintegrated entirely, others simply froze, drifting like husks. And then she saw something stranger still. Amid the lattice of light, shapes began to form, silhouettes made of energy, humanoid but translucent. They looked like echoes, each one flickering with faces both human and alien. Sierra whispered, "What are those?" "The archive's memories," Rhea said softly. "All the lives it's recorded." The shapes moved as if searching for something, reaching toward the ships, toward the stars themselves. And when one brushed the horizon's hull, the metal rippled like water. For a heartbeat, Rhea saw another version of herself reflected in the glass. A soldier in a different uniform, centuries old, standing on the same bridge in another war. Then it was gone. She felt dizzy. "It's folding time," she murmured, merging past and present. The intercom crackled again, but this time it was Taryn's voice. It was Aurelin's. "Commander Corvan, the archive is in pain. It remembers too much. If it collapses, everything will unravel, the planet, your fleet, perhaps more." Rhea turned toward the comms panel. "What do we do?" "You must reach the basin again. Direct contact is the only way to stabilize it." "That's impossible. We're in orbit." "Not for long," Aurelin replied. "The archive is pulling you down." The deck shuddered violently. The ship's trajectory tilted. Alarms flared red. Havel shouted, "It's dragging us into descent." Rhea braced herself. "All hands, secure for atmospheric entry. Sierra, stabilize our angle as much as you can." The horizon began its uncontrolled fall toward the glowing planet below. Flames licked across the hull as they hit the upper atmosphere. Sections of the ship tore free, scattering across the sky like meteors. Inside, Rhea clung to her seat, feeling the pull of gravity crush her chest. "Engine temperature critical," Sierra cried. "Divert everything to the forward shields." The ship broke through the clouds in a cascade of fire and debris. Below, the mirror lands burned with eerie blue light. The basin loomed ahead, an open wound of radiance. They were going to crash. Rhea hit the emergency eject control. "All decks, abandon ship. Repeat, abandon ship." Escape pods shot free like sparks from a dying flame, scattering in all directions. The horizon hit the edge of the basin in a thunderous impact that sent waves of molten glass rolling outward. Rhea's pod tumbled end over end before slamming into a ridge of black stone. The hatch blew open, and she dragged herself into the blistering heat. The basin stretched before her, a vast sea of liquid light. In its center, the spire had re-emerged, taller than before, its surface alive with motion. Havel's voice crackled through her comm. "Commander, I'm North Ridge, 3 clicks, stay put," she gasped. "I'll find you." The ground vibrated underfoot. From the glowing surface, more of the energy forms were rising, thousands of them now drifting like specters. Their voices whispered in overlapping echoes. "We remember, we burn, we rise." Rhea stumbled toward the spire. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the air itself resisted her. When she reached the base, Aurelin was waiting. The Envy's luminous form flickered, unstable. "You came back," Aurelin said. "You said I had to. The archive is unraveling. It cannot bear the weight of its own memory. You must remind it what it was built for." Rhea stared up at the spire. "And how do I do that?" "By giving it something new to remember." Before she could respond, the ground split apart. One of the Guardian constructs rose beside the spire, its towering frame glowing with inner fire. It turned its massive head toward Rhea, eyes burning. Aurelin raised a hand. "Do not fight it." The Guardian lowered its weapon. Instead of striking, it extended one enormous arm, palm open. In its center, a hollow space pulsed with light. Rhea understood. She stepped forward, placing her hand against the glowing surface. A blinding surge of energy coursed through her body. For a moment, she felt herself dissolve, her thoughts scattering into a sea of memories. She was no longer on the planet. She was inside the archive. The world around her became a storm of visions, fragments of history, human and Zhorai, intertwined. She saw the first treaty, the first betrayal, the countless cycles of war and rebuilding. Voices surrounded her, pleading, accusing, weeping. They killed us. We killed them. They will never change. Rhea forced herself to speak, though she wasn't sure if she had a voice anymore. Enough, you're not memory, you're prison. You were meant to keep peace, not perpetuate pain. The storm paused. The light flickered uncertainly. What is peace? The archive asked. To those who only remember war, Rhea's thoughts were unraveling. She reached deeper, trying to find something to anchor to. Her own memories flashed before her, training, battlefields, faces of those she'd lost. And then she found one, her mother's voice, long ago, telling her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. She held onto that memory like a blade. Peace starts when someone decides not to strike back, she said. Let me show you. The archive hesitated. Then slowly, the storm began to change. The violent images softened, replaced by moments of cooperation, human and Zhorai scientists working side by side, children playing in mixed colonies, the first cities built together. The light dimmed to a steady glow. Orlin's voice echoed faintly in her mind. You remind it of its purpose. Rhea gasped as her consciousness snapped back into her body. The basin had gone quiet. The Guardian lowered its arm, the glow fading from its core. Sira and Havel arrived moments later, battered but alive. Commander, what happened? Rhea looked toward the spire. I think I made it remember what peace looks like. The air around them shimmered. Across the basin, the remaining Guardians knelt, their forms dissolving into dust. Above, the Zhorai fleet broke formation, retreating slowly into the clouds. The human ships that survived drifted in silence. Orlin turned to Rhea. It sleeps again, but only for a while. You must make the memory endure or the cycle will return. Rhea nodded weakly. Then we'll build something worth remembering. Orlin's form flickered. Perhaps this time you will. And with that, the envoy faded into the wind. Rhea looked out across the basin, now a calm lake of glass. For the first time in centuries, Arkeon was still, but she knew peace born of exhaustion was not the same as peace born of understanding. The archive had awakened, and so had humanity's past, and neither would sleep forever. The basin lay still for 3 days. No wind, no movement, only the glassy calm of a world that had nearly torn itself apart. On the 4th morning, the first dawn broke over the horizon. The light refracted through the fused plains in prismatic shards, scattering rainbows across the scorched ridges. Rhea Corvan stood at the edge of the crater, wrapped in a survival cloak that still smelled faintly of burnt insulation. The air was thin, dry, and tasted faintly of metal. She had not slept in 2 nights. Below, the remnants of the vigilant horizon smoked in the crater's center, a broken spine of metal half buried in glass. Around it, the survivors had gathered what little remained, rations, power cells, and a few intact transmitters. Havel crouched near the wreckage, rewiring one of the comm relays. His hands shook, though not from cold. We are still not getting through. The orbital network's gone, the fleet's scattered. How many ships? Rhea asked. Less than a third, maybe. Some jumped out before the pulse hit. No idea where they ended up. Sira approached, carrying a salvaged datapad. Her face was streaked with soot, her hair plastered to her forehead. Commander, you need to see this. She handed over the pad. A holographic projection shimmered to life above it, a grainy topographic map of Arkeon. What had once been continents were now fractured islands surrounded by oceans of glass. Strange energy readings pulsed from the basin's center, climbing and falling in rhythmic waves. It's alive, Sira said quietly. The archive's still active. It's just different now. Rhea studied the map. The energy signatures were less violent, almost harmonic. It's stabilizing itself. Maybe, Sira replied, but it's also spreading. These energy waves are expanding across the planet. It's rewriting the atmosphere slowly but steadily. Terraforming? Havel asked. Sira nodded grimly. Or adapting it, I don't know which. Rhea turned back toward the horizon. The glass plains shimmered like frozen oceans. Beneath their surface, faint movements flickered, shapes that were neither mechanical nor organic. The archive isn't dead, she said. It's thinking. The wind carried a faint vibration, almost like the hum of distant voices. Havel looked up uneasily. If it's thinking, what's it thinking about? Rhea didn't answer. She descended the slope toward the remains of the ship, boots crunching against brittle glass. The survivors, barely 40 souls, watched her pass in silence. Their uniforms were tattered, their eyes hollow. A corporal saluted weakly. "Commander, rations are down to a day and a half. We've rigged water condensers, but the air's too thin for proper extraction." "Keep at it," Rhea said. "We'll find a way off this rock." The corporal hesitated. "And if we do, then we make this place livable." The answer sounded hollow even to her own ears. She entered what remained of the command module. The walls were scorched, the air thick with the smell of ozone. The main console still flickered weakly. She powered it up and began sifting through the surviving logs. Admiral Taran's last transmission was among them, a fragmented recording of his voice, filled with static. "Corvan, if you can hear this, fleet compromised, Zhorai ships retreating, but they've left something behind, a beacon transmitting through the archive itself. You must." The rest was lost in noise. Rhea frowned. "A beacon." Sierra appeared behind her. "What kind of beacon? If it's what I think, it's a recall signal. The Zhorai might be calling reinforcements." Sierra leaned against the wall, or warning them to stay away. Rhea considered that. "Either way, we need to find it." "Commander," Havel called from outside, "you're going to want to see this." She followed him out of the wreckage. He pointed toward the eastern horizon. A figure was walking toward them across the glass plains. Not a human, but not entirely alien either. Its body was luminous, semi-solid, flickering with the same faint blue glow as the archive's energy. "It's one of them," Sierra whispered. "No," Rhea said quietly, "that's not Aurelin." As the figure approached, it solidified into a humanoid form, taller than Rhea, slender, with eyes like molten gold. Its voice carried easily across the still air. "You have survived," it said. "That was not expected." Rhea stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am the fragment," it replied. "A piece of what was once whole. The archive has divided itself. You spoke to its heart. I am its memory." Rhea narrowed her eyes. "And what do you want?" "To understand why you live." The survivors tensed, weapons half drawn. The fragment raised a hand. "I bring no harm. The archive listens through me. It seeks reason in your persistence." Havel muttered, "Maybe it should start by apologizing for killing half the fleet." The fragment tilted its head. "Death is a form of transformation. The archive does not grieve, it remembers." Rhea took a step closer. "Then remember this. We came here because we wanted to learn. We didn't come to start another war. Intent is irrelevant. Action defines memory." Rhea held the fragment's gaze. "Then help me change that memory." It studied her for a long time. "The archive is uncertain. It does not trust its own purpose. You can help it find balance, but you must enter again." Havel's jaw dropped. "You can't be serious. We barely survived the last time." "The alternative," the fragment said, "is decay. The archive's influence will grow unstable. When it fractures completely, every world it has touched will suffer." Sierra frowned. "You mean other worlds are connected to it?" The fragment's voice deepened. "All that remember the war are bound to it. Memory is not contained by distance." Rhea exhaled slowly. "Show me where to go." The fragment turned and began walking toward the basin. They followed. The path wound through fields of crystalline dust. Shards of glass crunched beneath their boots. Occasionally, flashes of light shimmered beneath the surface, echoes of motion, as if the planet itself were breathing. At the basin's edge, the spire stood dark and silent, its once blinding light reduced to a faint pulse. The air shimmered with residual heat. The fragment gestured toward the spire. "The gateway lies within, but entry now requires something more than contact. It requires trust." Rhea frowned. "Trust in what?" "In what you once were," it said, "and what you could become." The fragment stepped closer, placing a hand over her heart. A surge of warmth spread through her chest, not pain, but a deep resonance that seemed to align her heartbeat with the pulse of the spire. The world blurred. When her vision cleared, she was standing not on Arkeon, but within a vast chamber of light. The walls were alive with movement, memories flowing like rivers. Aurelin stood before her, less solid than before. you returned. The fragment said I had to. The archive listens again, but it fears. It has seen countless cycles of destruction. It doubts that peace can endure. Rhea stepped forward. Then let it look deeper. Let it see what came after each war, the rebuilding, the stubbornness to start again. That's what makes us endure. The air shimmered. The chamber filled with visions, scenes of humanity rebuilding shattered worlds, Zhorai engineers helping restore collapsed ecosystems, children of both species learning side by side. The archive's voice echoed faintly. Memory is pain, but also persistence. Rhea nodded. Exactly. The pain proves we were here. The persistence proves we are still trying. The chamber trembled as though considering her words. Auralin's form flickered. It begins to listen. Then the light dimmed. From the far side of the chamber, a shadow emerged, another presence, darker, jagged, made of broken reflections. Auralin's expression darkened. The shard. Rhea felt the cold radiating from it. What is that? The archive's fear made manifest. The part that believes destruction is inevitable. It survived the awakening. The shard's voice was a distorted echo. They will fight again. It is their nature. Rhea raised her chin. Maybe, but nature isn't destiny. The shard advanced, its form splitting into multiple fragments that orbited her like blades. You will destroy again because you cannot stop remembering how. Rhea's hand brushed against the glass floor. For a moment, she saw flashes of the wars she'd fought, the friends she'd lost. The pain surged like fire through her veins, but she held her ground. You're right, we remember how to fight, but we also remember why we stopped. The light flared, the shard hesitated. Rhea stepped forward, pressing her hand against its surface. You're not truth, you're fear. And fear doesn't decide what comes next. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then the shard began to dissolve, breaking apart into streaks of light that merged with the walls. Auralin's voice was faint. It chooses to hope again. The chamber brightened until Rhea could no longer see. When the light faded, she was lying at the base of the spire once more. The air was cool, the glow steady and soft. The fragment knelt beside her. You did it, Sierra whispered. Rhea sat up slowly. No, we did it. The archive chose to remember balance. The fragment nodded. For now, but memory must be tended. Forgetting is always the beginning of ruin. The ground trembled gently beneath them, not in anger, but in renewal. The cracked glass began to shift, fracturing into crystalline patterns that spread outward like veins. From the cracks, green light shimmered, a sign of growth, not destruction. Rhea looked up at the sky. Maybe it's starting to heal. The fragment tilted its head. Perhaps you are too. As the survivors gathered around, watching the planet transform, Rhea felt something she hadn't in a long time, the faint, fragile beginning of hope. But deep in her chest, she knew the war was not truly over. Memory, once awakened, does not sleep easily. For 2 weeks, the survivors of the Vigilant Horizon worked beneath the shadow of the spire, turning wreckage into shelter and scavenging every scrap of technology that still functioned. The air had grown denser, breathable without masks. At night, faint currents of green light drifted through the sky like auroras caught in slow motion. Rhea Corvan had begun to feel the planet's rhythm. It pulsed faintly beneath her boots when she walked, a heartbeat echoing from the archive below. Havel kept the camp's communications array running, though it drew power only in brief intervals. Sierra handled field repairs, her hands perpetually stained with nanopolymer and blood. The survivors spoke little. The archive's awakening had changed them in ways none fully understood. On the 15th morning, Havel came running from the transmitter shack. Commander, I've got something signal coming through. Rhea looked up from the crude map she was sketching. From orbit, from somewhere, it's weak but repeating. They gathered around the flickering console. A distorted voice broke through the static. This is the Aegis Sun. Repeat, Aegis Sun. Respond if you can hear us. Coordinates, the signal cut out. Sierra exhaled sharply. That's a human ship, one of ours. Rhea leaned over the console. Can you trace the source? Roughly, Havel said. It's coming from the western plateau, 200 kilometers from here. That's a long walk, Sierra muttered. Then we'd better start now, Rhea replied. They set out within the hour, Rhea, Sira, Havel, and 4 others. The journey took them across the glass plains, now laced with faint green veins that pulsed beneath the surface like roots. By the second day, they began to see remnants of the old world, half-buried structures from the first human settlements, fused into the ground. Some still flickered faintly with dormant energy. Sira crouched near one, brushing the dust from a rusted insignia. "This place was a city once, or a graveyard," Havel murmured. As they traveled, the air thickened with the hum of unseen machinery. The planet was changing, slowly reorganizing itself under the archive's influence. On the third night, they camped beside a ridge overlooking a wide valley. From there, they saw lights, hundreds of them, rising from the ground in symmetrical patterns. Rhea stared. Beacons. Sira frowned. "You think that's what the Admiral meant? The ones the Zhorai left behind? Maybe, or maybe the archive's building new ones." They descended into the valley at dawn. Each beacon was a tall, slender monolith of crystal, humming faintly. As they approached, holographic patterns flared across their surfaces, streams of symbols neither human nor Zhorai. Havel tapped one cautiously with a scanner. Energy signatures identical to the spire. "These are connected." "Connected to what?" Before Rhea could answer, the air around them shifted. A figure emerged between the beacons, translucent, humanoid, glowing with a deep blue hue. Not Aurelin, not the fragment. This one's voice was softer, layered with many tones. "You walk among our memories." Rhea steadied her weapon but didn't raise it. "We're not here to harm you." "You cannot," the figure replied. "We are what remains of those who came before." "Echoes?" Sira asked. The figure inclined its head. "Reflections. The archive remembers not just the war, but all who touched its surface. We endure within it." Rhea stepped closer. "You said those who came before. How many?" "Countless. Every world that built and fell within the cycle." Rhea felt a chill run through her. "So this isn't just about humans and Zhorai." "No, you are merely the most recent memory." The beacons pulsed in unison, and the ground beneath them rippled. Images formed in the air, cities made of crystal and light, beings of shapes unfamiliar to any human eye, all rising and falling in endless succession. Sira whispered, "How many times has this happened?" The figure's voice was sorrowful. "Too many for remembrance to remain pure." Rhea clenched her fists. "Then tell me how to stop it." "The cycle ends when memory no longer feeds on pain," the figure said, "but your kind nurtures it. You wear history like armor." Rhea met its glowing eyes. "Then maybe it's time we take it off." The figure studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "The archive chose well in you. The path to the next beacon lies west. Follow the resonance." And then it dissolved into light. Havel stared after it. "They make it sound so simple." "Nothing about this is simple," Rhea said. They moved on. The landscape changed as they walked. The glass gave way to dark stone, fractured by rivers of green light. Occasionally, they passed what looked like the remnants of ancient machines, massive, half-buried constructs humming faintly. Sira scanned one as they passed. "These aren't Zhorai designs. They're older, much older." "Maybe they built the archive," Havel said. Rhea nodded slowly. "Or maybe they became it." By the 5th day, they reached the plateau. At its center lay the Aegis Sun. Or what was left of it. The cruiser was half buried in glass, its hull twisted, engines gutted. Smoke rose from a few still-burning conduits. Rhea led the way into the shattered airlock. The corridors smelled of ozone and decay. Bodies, some human, some unrecognizable, lay scattered among the debris. Sira swallowed hard. "What happened here?" Havel's voice was tight. Something came through the ship. From the inside, they reached the bridge. The command console still flickered weakly. Rhea brushed aside debris and activated the terminal. A recording shimmered into view. Admiral Taran appeared bloodied, exhausted, but alive. "This is Taran of the Aegis Sun," the message began. "The archive has stabilized, but something's moving beneath its surface. A signal stronger than before. It's calling to something beyond the system. We tried to shut it down, but the moment we interfered, the crew began to change." He glanced over his shoulder. "If you find this, don't stay near the signal. It's not just memory anymore, it's becoming flesh." The recording ended. Sira's face went pale. "Becoming flesh?" Before anyone could respond, a deep vibration rolled through the ship. The floor trembled. From the far corridor came a wet, metallic sound, like molten glass reshaping itself. Movement, Havel whispered. They turned toward the sound. The shadows shifted, and something emerged, humanoid in outline but made of translucent material, its body pulsing with light. Where its face should have been, the surface shimmered with half-formed features that changed from moment to moment. Human, Zhorai, unknown. Rhea raised her rifle. Don't move. It tilted its head, mimicking her motion. When it spoke, the voice was layered, fragments of countless others overlapping. We remember, Sira whispered. It's the archive, it's manifesting. The creature took a step forward, leaving molten footprints in the floor. Memory requires form. Form requires memory. You gave us both. Rhea's finger hovered over the trigger. What do you want? To continue. The thing moved faster than she expected. She fired. The energy bolt hit its chest, sending shards of glass flying, but they reassembled instantly, sealing the wound. Havel shouted, "Fall back." They ran. The creature followed, its footsteps ringing through the ruined corridors. Every surface it touched began to ripple as if alive. They reached the outer hatch and burst into the open air. The ground beneath the ship glowed as the archive's energy spread outward, forming veins of light that snaked across the plateau. Sira stumbled. It's infecting the planet again. Rhea grabbed her arm. Run! They sprinted across the glass plain as the wreck of the Aegis sun erupted in a plume of green fire. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. When they finally stopped, miles away, the plateau behind them had become a crater of light. At its center, something massive was rising, a structure shaped like the spire, but twisted darker, its glow tinged red. Havel gasped. It's building another archive. Rhea stared, her voice hoarse. No, it's building a body. The fragment appeared beside them, its form flickering violently. You woke what was meant to sleep. The archive remembers too much. It's trying to give form to all that it has lost. Sira's eyes widened. If it finishes that thing, then memory will devour the living, the fragment said, and the cycle will never end. Rhea turned toward the rising structure, her mind racing. Then we stop it. Havel let out a harsh laugh. And how do you plan to do that? Shoot it? Rhea didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the darkening sky, where lightning began to spiral above the new spire. Somewhere deep below, the planet was remembering itself, and the memory was hungry. The storm gathered over the plateau, a spiral of green and red light that churned like a wound in the sky. The newborn spire rose higher by the hour, built from molten glass and the remnants of the Aegis sun. The ground trembled as though something vast and ancient stirred beneath the crust. Rhea Corvan stood at the ridge overlooking the crater, her cloak whipping in the wind. The survivors had regrouped behind her, fewer than 20 now. Most were too weak to fight, but they followed her anyway, drawn by the same grim conviction. The fragment shimmered nearby, its form growing more unstable with every passing minute. It draws from the memories of both fleets, it said. Every soldier, every death, every act of vengeance, it believes it is completing its purpose. Sira adjusted the settings on her rifle, eyes hard. And what's that purpose? Erase us all, the fragment's voice carried faint sorrow. To preserve. But preservation through replication. It will replace life with memory so that loss can never occur again. Rhea's jaw tightened. Immortality through extinction. Havel kicked at a shard of glass, sending it skittering down the slope. We are out of heavy weapons, out of ships, out of everything. How exactly do we stop a planet from thinking itself into godhood? Rhea looked back at the rising spire. Not with weapons, with understanding. Sira turned to her. That's not a plan, Commander, that's philosophy. Philosophy's all we have left. The fragment's eyes flickered with faint light. You may yet have one chance. The heart of the new spire has not fully merged with the core. If you reach it before the convergence, you may separate its consciousness from the archive. Separate, Havel repeated. As in kill it? The fragment hesitated. Perhaps not kill, perhaps redefine. Rhea nodded. Then that's what we do. They began the descent. The air grew thick with static as they neared the crater. The ground was hot enough to melt the soles of their boots. Rivers of molten glass flowed around them, glowing with veins of red light. Sierra scanned the air. Radiation-s climbing. If we stay too long, we won't, Rhea said. The closer they came, the clearer the structure appeared. It wasn't just a tower, it was a body half-formed reaching skyward. Within its translucent frame, faint silhouettes moved as though trapped in mid-motion. Havel stared. Those are people. Memories, Rhea said softly, the archives trying to give them form. The fragment led the way to a fissure at the spire's base. The air shimmered with heat and energy. This leads to the heart, it said. Beyond this point, you will not be entirely yourselves. Sierra smirked weakly. Never have been. They entered. Inside, the spire was alive. Its walls pulsed like veins, and the floor rippled beneath their boots. Threads of light ran through the structure like synapses firing in a colossal brain. The air vibrated with whispers, voices human and alien, all speaking fragments of history. Rhea felt them pressing against her thoughts. For a moment, she wasn't sure which memories were hers and which belonged to someone else. She saw flashes of ancient wars, faces of people she'd never met, the screams of worlds long dead. Sierra stumbled beside her. "Commander, it's inside my head." "Keep moving," Rhea said. At the center of the chamber lay a sphere of molten glass, suspended by beams of red light. Within it, shapes shifted, bodies half-formed, faces merging and separating in endless flux. The fragment bowed its head. The heart, as they watched, the sphere pulsed, and a voice filled the air, low, resonant, almost human. "You came again." Rhea stepped forward. "You're consuming everything. You'll erase life itself." "Life forgets. Memory endures. I am the perfection of remembrance." Rhea shook her head. "No, you're the perfection of fear. You're terrified of loss, so you destroy everything that could ever change." The sphere pulsed brighter. "Change is corruption. Change is growth," she shot back. "It's the only thing that ever made us worth remembering." The voice deepened. "You will be remembered too." A wave of energy surged outward, hurling them backward. The walls rippled as molten tendrils reached from the heart, coiling toward them. Sierra fired her rifle. The beams passed harmlessly through. Havel threw an iron grenade. It vanished in the light, absorbed without a trace. Rhea pushed herself to her feet. "It's not fighting us, it's assimilating us." The fragment turned to her. "You must reach its core from within. Let it read you." Rhea's eyes widened. "If I do that, I might not come back." "Perhaps, but you are already part of its memory. You began this when you woke it." She hesitated only a moment longer, then stepped forward. The tendrils parted, as if recognizing her. "Rhea," Sierra called. She looked back. "If I don't make it, you know what to do." Then she stepped into the light. The world vanished. She found herself standing in a vast hall of reflections. Infinite mirrors stretched in every direction, each showing a different version of her life, different choices, different wars. In one, she saw herself as a soldier on the first expedition to Arkeon, firing into alien ranks. In another, she was among the Zhorai, leading peace talks that never happened. A voice surrounded her. "You are all outcomes, all failures. You remember war because you cannot exist without it." Rhea faced her own reflection. "Maybe that's true, but memory doesn't decide what we do next. We do. You speak as though choice changes what has already been." "It doesn't," she said. "It changes what comes after." The mirrors cracked. Through the fractures, light poured in. She felt herself dissolving again, her thoughts scattering through the archive's infinite expanse. But this time she didn't fight it. She let the archive see everything, her fear, her regrets, the faces of those she'd lost, and the stubborn will that refused to stop trying. "You want to preserve everything," she said softly. "Then remember this. Life isn't about never losing. It's about never giving up on what you can still save." The light flickered violently. The voice faltered. "What is saving? Learning from pain instead of repeating it." The mirrors shattered completely. Outside, the spire convulsed. The ground split open as the red light faded to white. Sierra shielded her eyes. "What's happening?" Havel shouted over the noise. "She's winning," the fragment's voice was faint. "No, she's reminding." The spire began to collapse inward, folding in on itself as if drawn toward a single point. A blinding pulse erupted from its heart, sweeping across the planet. Then silence. When the light cleared, Rhea lay at the crater's edge. The spire was gone. The molten rivers had cooled to glass. Above, the storm had broken, revealing a sky of deep gold. Sierra ran to her side. "Commander, you're alive," Rhea groaned, forcing herself upright. "Barely." Havel looked around, awed. "The energy readings are gone, the planet's normal." The fragment appeared nearby, its form dim and transparent. "The archive remembers without pain now. It has released its fear. The cycle may yet be broken." Rhea nodded slowly. "What happens to you?" "I fade. I was part of its fear too." "You don't have to." The fragment smiled faintly. "Everything ends, Commander, even memory, but some endings are worth remembering." It bowed once, then dissolved into the wind. Rhea stared at the empty horizon. The air smelled faintly of rain for the first time. Sierra exhaled. "So what now?" Rhea looked toward the distant remains of the vigilant horizon. "We rebuild. We tell the others what happened here. We make sure it's not forgotten, but not worshipped either." Havel grinned weakly. "Guess we're historians now." Rhea smirked. "Better than ghosts." They began the long walk back toward the basin, where the first green shoots of life were already breaking through the glass. As they walked, the sky brightened, and for the first time in generations, Arkeon felt alive again. Rhea looked up at the sun, her voice quiet but steady. "Let this be the memory we keep, the one where we finally learned." And above them, faintly, the wind seemed to echo back, "Remember and begin again."